now.
Listen, I know that I'm a stickler for details. I come from the old school, learned it from my dad, and I know our next guest, Bill Chow's from the old school. I've heard in past places that I've worked that I wasn't that well liked because guess what? I held people accountable. And
That's
also,
what I'm
guess
saying.
What? We won!
How about that?
Details, details, details. Details win, details lose. Are you winning now?
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
It is. G'day, Canada. Welcome to the RPShow. We are coming to you out of the bunker here in Western Canada. Dupes Moose is here with me as usual. How you doing, Dupes?
I'm well.
405 shows now.
Yeah.
It's getting to be a lot.
It is.
It's getting to be a lot. You were just pointing out the Dakota Shepley recent Instagram post, the former Rough Rider, now of the San Francisco 49ers. You didn't read what he wrote, did you? You were just so in awe of what he was wearing and how he looked.
I know. Sounds creepy.
The reason being, it's National Sweatpants Day today.
Oh, he had the roots. Yeah, okay, I got it now.
That was why he was posting the photo there. So, welcome inside, everybody. Good afternoon to the Eastern fans and good morning to the Western fans. Hope you're ready to talk sports for the next 2 hours and have some fun. We got some great guests. Kim Coates will be joining us in moments. Star of Sons of Anarchy, Bad Blood, Bad Boys 2, I believe. I'll have to look that up in his filmography. I think it's Bad Blood 2. And Kelly Rudy. The ageless and peerless Kelly Rudy will be joining us in hour 2 from Calgary, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Appreciate those that are chiming in with their comments. Just a reminder, viewer takeover comes in the last segment. This segment is for the Quick Six Show topics. Please, Jordan, let's hit it. Thank you. As the warm-up is brought to you by the Four Seasons Sports Palace. Come in and warm up at the Four Seasons. Obviously, point number 1, the great Warren Woods passing away yesterday at the age of 66 from COVID. It was gutting news, gut-wrenching. Producer Clark has a photo up here. We'll be talking about Woodsy throughout the program today. He is definition of an icon. I'll give a little more of my thoughts in hour 2. I'm going to defer to Darren here in a moment. Clark said he had a few photos of Woodsy that he's going to roll. There you go. There you go. And well, listen, you can't talk about Woodsy without a smile on your face. He's looking down now, hoping that people would have a beer and celebrate him rather than cry. And I know it's tough times for his family, obviously, but a life well lived there. And it was suggested to us that we bring on some of Woodsy's former coworkers, and I thought, look, I met the guy in 1992. That's 29 years ago. I remember his first day on television on STV because I was in high school watching STV at the farm, and they're like, we've got a new sportscaster here. He's from Ontario, Warren Woods. Warren, welcome to STV. What made you want to come to Regina? Blah, blah. And then from there, okay? Yeah. And we were kicking this around before the show with Dupes. I said, was he part of your childhood growing up? Because he was not only like through high school, but into the 90s. That's when Woodsy really cut his teeth, him and Ron Rimmer on Sportsline, 11 o'clock at night. It's 11 o'clock, and this is Sportsline. We used to huddle around the television as guys with our buddies, Pat's staff, my rec hockey buddies, whatever, and watch Sportsline and see who's Woodsy going to rib tonight? What's Woodsy going to say tonight? You know what I mean? That was the culture of this sports community. That era of sportscasters gone. Woodsy they don't make him like him anymore. There never will be people like that anymore. So I've got more stories. Like I said, I will save until hour 2. But I'm wearing my Rams bunny hug today in honor of Woodsy because he was for off and on the voice of the Regina Rams for many, many, many years. But I can speak on Warren Woods, I think, as well as anybody because we go back decades. Your thoughts on Woodsy?
Yeah, it's just tough news, right? I mean, I didn't know him as well as people that he worked with on a day-to-day basis, but we got to know each other a little bit in the community, and he's one of those guys. There's not many of them that are just so welcoming to somebody new in the community, especially in this business where it's so competitive. And I said this on social media, like he had no reason to be as nice to me as he was, but we did the curling event back in October just recently, and we did separate games, but just wanted to spend just endless amounts of time to the point where you got to shake him off your leg to go on the air, right? It's like, I got to go do my job, but he just wants to talk about this show. He was so curious about what we were doing with this show.
Yep.
And so interested, and we couldn't wait to get him in here, which never happened, unfortunately. But so that, and you saw the picture of me and him doing the Canada-West football game. I was looking at that, and I posted, and it wasn't until later I was mad that day when that day started, right? Because I had done Canada-West football on television the whole year. He hadn't done a game. And then all of a sudden we get to the playoffs, and there was an opening, and he came in to do the play-by-play call, which I kind of thought I might slide in and get to call the game. But by the time we got, past the opening kickoff, we just clicked like this, and we were having endless laughs, and you kind of forget about that stuff. And the last thing I wanted to point out is everybody on social media last night, you saw this, saying, I'm cheering for the Leafs tonight because of Woodsy. Well, I think that's a little premature, because if we know him, he probably isn't even in the building yet. He'd be still socializing with everybody in the lineup on the way in. So the Leafs will win one for him, down the road.
Well, he was a punchline as a Leafs fan, and he loved it.
Yes.
And I'm like, here's the Leafs losing again. So Woodsy leafed him. John Kirby's watching in Edmonton. He says, never heard of Woodsy. Hey, John, of course not. You're in Edmonton. But can you please think of somebody other than yourself for once? He's an icon here. Okay, give us a moment to talk about Warren Woods. And from Nelson Hakowicz, no one covered local sports like Woodsy. Loved in minor hockey when we would get picked for a game of the week, would always tape the 11 o'clock highlights. So, yeah, an icon gone, just an all-around really great guy. Speaking of the Leafs, point 2, Leafs-Oilers. Here was my night. As you know, you were in the building here. I was broadcasting another show, the Recovery Hour. So I watched the first 15 minutes of the game on Sportsnet before jumping in my car and coming to the studio here. And I'll be honest, I saw all the pregame pomp and circumstance and Brian Burke and Elliot Friedman and all of that, because I like the Sportsnet pregame shows. I love the NFL pregame shows.
Yes.
Right? I love them more than I like the NHL ones. Oh, yeah. Just we're all getting geeked up and hyped up for the game. Still reminded it's a brutal that there's no crowd at the game. And then honestly, man, they dropped the puck. And it just started eye-glazing hockey. I started checking my phone and walking around the house. There was nothing exciting about it. But I will say this. I listened to the game on the way up, the start, part of the first period, and then the very end of the game and the postgame with Joe Bonesy.
Yeah.
And there, by the way, is the mark of a great broadcaster that they also don't make anymore, that he can make a crappy game sound exciting. That's Joe Bone. Right? Because it was a crappy game. And the Oilers obviously won 3-1 with an empty net goal. But Bonesy said something along the lines of, and you Leaf fans watching, maybe you heard it, this is a ragtag game or a mishmash game, something like that, which you know what he meant.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't a good game.
It was bad. It was the worst game I've seen in a long time. And not just this season. Like, it was sloppy. It was just perimeter play. There was no shots. There was no great scoring chances. The goals were all bad. I mean, you look at the goals. Toronto scored on themselves to open the scoring. And then Cassian had the puck in his stick. He would strip, but Austin Matthews scored from the goal line. Bad goal. And then a power play that Edmonton can't get their power play going at all. And they could barely keep the puck in the zone, but managed to get it together for about 2.5 seconds to get a shot in that scores. And they end up with a power play goal and then the empty net goal. It was a bad game. They play each other 3 more times in the span of like a week to 10 days coming up here. So I hope it gets a lot better, because it was billed as it was supposed to be the game of the year to date. Right? It was supposed to be this wonderful Matthews versus McDavid. It was far from that. Yeah, well, the one thing they were talking a lot about, Dave Tippett wanting the Oilers to play defense and clamp down. And you know what that reminded me of? Speaking of the 90s and Woodsy, it reminded me of the 90s New Jersey Devils, that you could not watch them. It was gross. Yeah. But they won Stanley Cups that way. And I'm not saying the Oilers are going to win any Stanley Cups, but I thought asking Connor McDavid to play defense is like Secretariat pulling a beer wagon. Like the Budweiser Clydesdale. That's not my line. I think it's at least Don Cherry's. He probably stole it from somebody too. But not allowing Connor McDavid to go is a crime. Oh, yeah. But they won.
So they're not making any apologies.
It worked. And, probably loosen the reins on him a little bit, keep everybody else clamped down. I don't know, but it was a tough night for everybody.
Producer Clark says, loved watching the 11 p.m. Global Sports broadcast to watch some junior hockey highlights, some local sports, and all that stuff with my dad. Good times. He will be missed. There's no doubt, from Producer Clark. Stephen Lentzos, good friend of ours, says, on the other hand, game of the year so far was Habs Canucks. That's point 3. You're reading my mind, Steph. Now, I was watching the Golden Knights, okay, Canada's team. So I did not put it on Montreal, Vancouver. But I did see the notifications going off. Bing, bing, bing. Goals like crazy in that game. Tyler Toffoli, a hat trick for Montreal in a losing cause. Seemed wild. I don't know if you caught any of that game at all.
Just a bit, yeah.
You did? And what I've been hearing out of Vancouver is this unbelievable, unreal amount of pressure on the Canucks. And so I want them to win because I remember Travis Green from his WHL time. We were in the league at the same time. And I want him to do well. Jim Benning, whatever. But I did for Vancouver. I want them to do well. So I was hoping for them to beat Montreal. The one thing I did see last night, somebody tweeted the Canadiens are fun to watch. I feel they've always been fun to watch. Whether they win or not is another story, but they've always been fun to watch. Carey Price is fun to watch. They go at it again tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
But 6-5 in a shootout, the NHL is just thanking the hockey gods that this happened.
Oh, yeah. And it's so great for the game. And sometimes that's what you get when you get a good matchup like that. I think the concern, is with Quinn Hughes and with Elias Pettersson being so cold to start the year. But that means Brock Besser's playing better, and there's others on Vancouver that are starting to play a lot better. It was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to watch it again.
From our viewers, I love you all chiming in today. Mark Zosel says, watching the Oilers Leafs was like watching a rec hockey game. No crowd, no atmosphere. Chad Cavers says, McDavid playing defense is as confusing as 99 sitting on the bench in a shootout. Colin in Ottawa made a point. I don't know if he can put it up on the screen. It was regarding, he said, did you see Spezza miss the net? So Jason Spezza. And I'm sorry, I know guys that have coached him. They tell me he's kind of like Odie the dog. Do you know what I mean? Just great kid.
Love having him around.
Lights are on, nobody's home. And you got an empty net right there to tie the game and you miss. 4x6. So, yeah, and there it is. He goes, I felt sorry for Spezza. From what I understand, he's a great guy. I don't think you're winning anything with him. But anyways, moving on. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Point 4 here in the warm-up, the NFC Conference Championships this weekend. I feel like we could have talked about the NFL all week long because it's so darn exciting. The poll question today is, which quarterback matchup are you looking forward to the most this weekend? In the NFC, it's Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, and in the AFC, it's Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes. I got to think, I'm a Brady guy, so I voted for that matchup, and it looks like most of you are too. 68% saying Rodgers-Brady. Although the column that appears on our website right now, rodpedersen.com, from Mike Stackhouse, said he's pulling for Rodgers to prove that he's not washed up. And I'm like, what about the other gray beard on the other side of the field? Right? If you're cheering for Rodgers for that, you got to be cheering for Brady. It's a far better story than Aaron Rodgers, is it not?
Well, my first thought is, where's the narrative that Rodgers is washed up? Like, who's shouting from the rooftops that Rodgers is washed up? Because it doesn't feel like
nobody's saying that.
No,
MVP
year, just finished first in the conference. He continues to get better and better and better, and he's found a real connection with Matt LaFleur and with Devontae Adams, the best connection in football. I'm most looking forward to that. That's going to be the most fun for me, Rodgers versus Brady. I do think at the end of the day, Allen versus Mahomes, that Chiefs-Bills game, is probably going to be a better game. I think that's going to be a really, really good game. I think the Bucs-Packers game, either way, has a chance to get out of hand. I don't see it being a shootout, unfortunately.
Jamie Nugabar writes in, the voice of the Notre Dame Hounds. He says, don't you mean Henny versus Allen? Come on, Nugsy, watch SportsCenter. Patrick Mahomes is starting for the Chiefs here on Sunday. It's a doubleheader Sunday, by the way. I think I'd rather have one game on each day, but the NFL didn't consult me.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Get your can of chili out.
Point 5, I had, what else is there? And then I realized there are a few other things The UFC, Conor McGregor is fighting Saturday night. That's a pretty big deal. CFL, the draft rankings came out, and we'll be talking about that later on today and more in depth tomorrow on a Flame Tech Football Friday. But the question is, would you draft Chuba Hubbard? That would be a great poll question today. The star from Oklahoma State, who's from Edmonton, would you draft him? Because if you drafted Chase Claypool last year, you would have just been wasting a pick. He's never coming to the CFL. Can the same be said for Chuba Hubbard? I don't know, but that's the question. Our first guest logged in, so I'm going to speed this up. And by the way, you have thoughts on that, I can tell.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
We'll get back to it.
And point 6, 6 National Hockey League games tonight, including Winnipeg at Ottawa. And I saw people waking up in Winnipeg today and tweeting and Facebooking, "Happy Jets game day." They're excited there, and they should be. All these Canadian games are very exciting on a daily basis, and it's Montreal at Vancouver again. So, viewer takeover coming up a little later on. When we come back, it's our good friend Kim Coates. You're watching the RP Show on Game Plus Television, live daily on YouTube, and listen live for Suds Full Service Car Wash at rodpedersen.com.
You're watching Rod Pedersen on demand. For more of the Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.